I am the illegitimate daughter of the current empress, secretly raised in the Ningyuan Marquis' residence. My legitimate elder sister has always loved to take things from me, clothes, jewelry, food, everything I cherished, she would take. I never fought her for it. Mother said I was destined for the palace. Yet on the eve of my wedding, she nestled in the arms of Crown Prince Gujini, my childhood sweetheart, gently caressing her belly with coy blush. The Crown Prince forced me to annul our engagement for her sake, and my family hoped she would take my place as Crown Princess. I nodded in agreement, severing ties with that scoundrel and his mistress with a single annulment decree. As they gloated in triumph, they knew not that the future empress could only be me. Whom I chose would become Crown Prince. When the Marquis of Ningyuan died, I was barred outside his chambers. Hearing the wails within, my heart burned with agony. He had taken me in as an orphaned girl, pitying my helplessness, and raised me as his adopted daughter. Upon entering the Marquis' residence, he personally arranged my quarters, sought a wet nurse, and granted me the finest everything the estate had to offer. Under his protection, I grew to the age of 7. Though not my biological father, he was more than a father to me. Yet within the Marquis' estate, he alone truly shielded me. The Marquis suspected I was born to one of my father's concubines and disliked me intensely. But, mindful of my father, she dared not openly abuse or scold me. My elder sister, Xie seethed with jealousy over the rare treasures I constantly received, things she'd never even seen, and targeted me relentlessly. Little did she know these gifts were secretly sent by my birth mother, who missed me dearly. The moment father passed, the main wife of the Marquis' mansion rushed me out of the room, her face twisted with disgust. She'd completely forgotten father's final words to her, to treat me well. I heard the sobbing inside gradually subside. Soon after, Xie emerged. Though her face bore tear streaks, her eyes flickered with a hidden spark of excitement. Father is dead. I'll see who protects you now. I am the most honored legitimate daughter of the Ningyuan Marquis' household. All these years, father gave everything good to you. From now on, you'll only get my leftovers and use what I discard. Only I knew the Ningyuan Marquis's current glory was entirely due to my birth mother. But I had no desire to argue with Xie now. My gaze slipped through the crack in the door she'd opened, seeking to see if father was still. You wretch! How dare you look at father? He was cursed to death by you. Xie lunged forward, shoving me violently to the ground. Hearing the commotion outside, the people inside the room emerged one by one. Their gazes fell upon me, their usually gentle faces now frozen in icy disdain. They had never regarded me as family, not a single one of them. That very night, my quarters were moved from the most spacious courtyard to a dark, damp woodshed. The servants brought only spoiled food. With father dead, I lost all appetite. Within days, I wasted away from hunger. Xie often visited the woodshed to see me. She wore my luxurious old clothes, adorned with my former jewelry, twirling before me to flaunt it. Father actually spared the expense to buy you such costly things? You worthless little thing, did you think you deserved them? But it's all right now. Father is dead, and these things are mine. After days of deep despondency, I finally struggled out of my grief over father's death and looked up at Xie. It's just that everyone has their own destiny. Everyone has their own destiny? Ha ha ha. Precisely. You were born lowly, how could you possibly deserve such fine things? I am the most honored legitimate daughter of the Marquis' household. These belong to me by right. She raised her eyebrows smugly, clearly misinterpreting the meaning behind my words. Suddenly, her gaze fell upon the untouched, stale food I had left untouched. A sharp gleam flashed in Xie eyes. No wonder I thought you looked thinner earlier, you haven't been eating properly. How can this be? What if you starve to death someday? She curled her little finger to pick up a half-eaten, blackened steamed bun, offering it to me with a smile. Father has only just passed. You absolutely cannot die now. Otherwise, the outside world will think our Marquis household mistreated you, our adopted daughter, after father's death. She forcibly pried open my mouth and forced me to swallow the steamed bun. Just then, the loud voice of an imperial eunuch echoed from outside. Imperial edict has arrived, the Marquis of Ningyuan had passed away. The Empress, remembering his service as a subordinate to the general of the guard who had protected her maternal family, was deeply grieved. Thus, she issued an edict inviting the two young ladies of the Marquis' household to the palace to keep her company. Xie Yun was overjoyed. The general of the guard commanded vast military power, and the Empress naturally wielded great influence. The Ningyuan Marquis' household was now little more than an empty shell, having only recently begun to recover. If she could attach herself to the Empress's powerful tree, by the time she came of age and sought marriage, she would naturally be noticed by better families. Though displeased that I was being summoned to the palace alongside her, Xie Yun had no time to cause me trouble. The Empress's summons was urgent, and she hurried off to wash and dress. Before Chiwu Palace, I observed the brocade robe Xie Yun wore, floating light brocade my birth mother had personally selected for me. The jade bracelet on her wrist was also one my mother had specially sought out. Yet all these items had ultimately been presented in the name of the Marquis of Ningyuan. My true identity, unacceptable to the world, must naturally remain hidden from others. Sister, your attire today seems rather inappropriate. After I spoke, Xie Yun gave me a cold smile and looked me up and down. After father's death, she had taken all my clothes. The white garments I wore now were hastily dug out from among the servants' trunks. What? Are you jealous that the Empress Dowager summoned me first? Xie Yun gloated triumphantly. Jealousy won't help you. I am the only legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Ningyuan. You're merely an outsider. Your chance to enter the palace and see Her Majesty the Empress today is only thanks to the prestige of our Marquisate. Watching her enter the hall with such glee, I couldn't help but sneer coldly. I had warned her it was inappropriate. Since she refused to listen, she was only inviting trouble upon herself. Xie Yun emerged with reddened eyes, too aggrieved to even glance at me as she followed the matron to the side hall. The Empress intended for us to stay in Chiwu Palace. Miss Qing Yan, Her Majesty requests your presence. A palace eunuch came to summon me. This wasn't my first encounter with the Empress, but it was my first meeting with her within the palace's imposing walls. Behind the delicate beaded curtain, I saw the noble beauty clad in purple, and the shattered porcelain fragments still damp with tea that lay strewn on the floor. The chamber's atmosphere was thick with cold tension. The palace attendants held their breath, clearly sensing the wrath of the chamber's mistress had only just subsided. Yet when I entered, the voice from behind the curtain softened considerably. You may all withdraw. After dismissing the attendants, she beckoned me forward. I stepped around the beaded curtain and gazed upon that familiar face, softly calling out. Mother. I was the illegitimate daughter of the Empress and her lover before she entered the palace. At that time, the Empress's position within the palace was precarious. With no other choice, she sent me away from the palace and secretly replaced me with a male infant that very night. The Protector General was far away at the frontier fighting wars. Fortunately, the Marquis of Ningyuan was utterly loyal to the Empress, so I was brought into the Marquis's residence and raised as his second daughter. Though she couldn't keep me by her side, the Empress cherished me deeply. Once her position stabilized, she risked leaving the palace to visit me several times. Even when she couldn't, she never ceased our correspondence. Now that the Marquis of Ningyuan has passed away, she immediately brought me back to the palace. Mother said this time she would never send me away again. Sure enough, within days, the Emperor showed exceptional mercy, allowing me to remain in the palace to study alongside the imperial princes and princesses. Meanwhile, Xie Yun was expelled from the palace for wearing luxurious attire during her mourning period. With the Empress's protection, my life in the palace was relatively comfortable, though I always lived in fear. I was an illegitimate child. No matter how kindly the empress treated me, in others' eyes, I was merely a fortunate foster daughter of a marquis's household, far less noble than they. I grew weary of those hypocritical faces and began to find solitude rather agreeable. One day after classes, I heard shouts and blows echoing from a secluded path. Approaching, I saw several princes bullying a frail youth. His thin clothes only accentuated his gaunt frame. His eyes were dull and lifeless, and the blood staining his pale lips was particularly jarring. I recognized him as the fifth prince, Gu Jingyi. His mother, the Empress Dowager, was confined to the cold palace, leaving him without any backing. Not only was he frequently bullied by the other princes, but the palace servants also skimped on his food, clothing, and daily necessities. If they kept beating him, it might end in tragedy. Just as I moved to intervene, someone spoke before me. "Stop, ah!" A startled cry echoed as the speaker tripped over a stone, landing face first beside me. "Fourth prince, you," I looked down to find none other than the fourth prince, the emperor's most favored son. They say the fourth prince is frail and sickly, but I never imagined he was this weak, tripping after just a few steps. The others had noticed the commotion here, so I stepped forward to rescue the fifth prince. His body felt icy cold. Only when I offered him my hand warmer did a glimmer of life return to his eyes. Gu Jingyi glanced at me, his throat clearing as if struggling for words. He managed a half-hearted thank you before hurrying away. Turning back, I saw the fourth prince had already pulled himself up, his face flushed as he stared at me. I continued my studies in the palace as usual, unaware that my earlier intervention for Gu Jingyi had earned me the resentment of the other princes. They had already conspired in secret to teach me a lesson. Lured by a familiar princess to the vicinity of an abandoned palace, I was suddenly surrounded by those princes. Watching the princess who had deceived me flee in panic, I understood what was about to happen. "Are you not afraid I might report today's events to Her Majesty the Empress?" Earlier, I had used the Empress to scare them off, but this time, they merely exchanged smirks, dismissing my words with contempt. "You're nothing but a lowly adopted daughter of the Marquis of Ningyuan. No matter how much mother favors you, you can never compare to her own flesh and blood, the sixth prince." The group snickered viciously. I saw a familiar figure step forward from among them, surrounded by his admirers, smiling at me. "Xie Qingyan, tell me, would mother favor me, or would she favor you?" He was the sixth prince, my age, the very infant who had taken my place back then. I never imagined he was the mastermind behind inciting others to bully Gu Jingyi, nor did I expect him to turn his cruelty toward me. As they pushed me to the ground, I saw a lean figure bursting out from somewhere. He shoved aside those who wanted to strike me, but two fists couldn't fight four hands. He could only brace himself against me, shielding me from the rain of punches and kicks. It was Gu Jingyi. His lips were tightly pressed together, fighting back the pain. He was bleeding again. No one wants to bleed endlessly, no one enjoys being beaten constantly. Yet in that moment, he shielded me completely, using his own body to express the gratitude he hadn't finished last time. The blood on him grew thicker and thicker. I was terrified, my heart pounding. The next instant, he raised his hand, and a coldness covered my eyes. "Don't look." I couldn't see, but I could feel. I felt warm blood dripping onto my face. Terrified, I cried out, begging them to stop, but showing weakness brought them not a moment's hesitation. Gu Jingyi panicked too, whispering softly in my ear. "Don't be afraid. It doesn't hurt. I've long gotten used to it." After what felt like an eternity, I finally heard the command, "Stop." The fourth prince rushed in to intervene. As the emperor's most favored son, the sixth prince feared him not, yet others still held him in dread. Terrified, I had no memory of how I returned to Chiwu Palace. I only recall hiding in my mother's embrace and weeping all night. Not long after, the sixth prince drowned after accidentally slipping while playing. When they pulled him from the water, his body was already bloated from soaking. At least this tragic cycle has finally ended, I heard Mother whisper during the funeral rites. Having lived in this palace for so long, I'd come to understand certain truths. The sixth prince had the Empress as his protector and was a strong contender for crown prince. Countless court officials coveted his position, yet he'd avoided misfortune all these years, until this drowning. He wasn't even of royal blood. When Mother's position was unstable, she needed a prince for support. Now that her family commands a powerful army, having an heir matters little. To outsiders, the Empress Dowager would surely need to promote another prince now that her biological son was dead. The harem grew restless. After nearly losing his life that day, Gu Jingyi didn't attend classes for a long time. With nothing else to do, I went to visit him. His quarters were even more modest than I'd imagined. Even palace maids dared to bully a prince, but they treated Gu Jingyi gently only when I was present. As time passed, Gu Jingyi and I grew closer, and his life gradually improved. 7 years in the palace flew by, and I was now 14. Outside the riverside pavilion stood a magnolia tree I adored. I often sat in the pavilion, sketching its newly bloomed white blossoms. Gu Jingyi would sit nearby, never disturbing me, quietly reading his books. His focus was intense as he read. A gentle breeze would lift the fine strands of hair at his forehead, revealing the emerging features of a young man, clear, handsome brows and eyes, like an inkwash painting. Qing Yan, I've always wondered. You. His voice broke the silence, and I realized his mind had been elsewhere. What are you wondering about? Why? Why are you so kind to me? His voice was soft, almost lacking confidence. My brush paused mid-stroke as I painted the magnolia, slowly recalling past experiences. Perhaps it's because we're so alike. I was a child who couldn't bear the light, while he was a child who couldn't see the light. I cherished him as I cherished myself, yet to others, there was nothing pitiable about me, for I possessed everything. If I can bring you even a speck of light, however small, it would be a meaningful deed. But I suppose I'll never be like this magnolia. Never like this magnolia, standing pure and clear beneath the sun. Gu Jingyi lifted his slightly lowered gaze, staring in my direction, lost in thought. As the sun grew faint, I couldn't help but look out beyond the pavilion. Oh, it's going to rain. The rain came swiftly, yet in the next instant, I saw Gu Jingyi dash into it. His steps were sharp and decisive. Before I could call out, he was already heading straight for the magnolia tree. Rainwater instantly soaked through his clothes, yet the young man's eyes were fixed only on the white magnolia high above. I was stunned, watching him, his clothes drenched, pick a handful of white magnolias and run toward me. His usually indifferent expression now held an unmistakable hint of joy. Across the water pavilion, he held out the pure white magnolias before me. Qing Yan, you are more beautiful than these magnolias. My feelings for Gu Jingyi gradually changed in nature, and these shifts naturally did not escape my mother's eyes. While combing my hair, she glanced at my reflection in the mirror, where my lips often curled upward, and teased me. Seems your studies haven't been demanding enough lately. Startled back to reality, as if my secret thoughts had been exposed, I hurriedly replied, Mother, you're teasing me again. Mother smiled knowingly. Come to think of it, my dear Yenner will be coming of age next year. Why not tell Mother which prince has captured your heart? My gaze drifted involuntarily to the white magnolia in the vase, but I quickly composed myself. Why must it be a prince? Oh. Could it be the princes in the palace aren't distinguished enough? Mother teased at first, then grew serious. The treasure I hold in the palm of my hand deserves to marry the most esteemed man in the realm, becoming one of the 2 most honored women in this world. I gasped. The 2 most honored women, that meant the Empress. It is time to designate the crown prince. Whichever Prince Yenner sets her sights on shall become the heir. As the son of a consort confined to the cold palace, Gu Jingyi posed no threat among the princes vying for the throne. Yet no one could have predicted his stroke of incredible luck. He somehow ended up registered under the empress's name. Gu Jingyi's status shot to the heavens overnight, making him the most likely contender to rival the fourth prince, Gu Yaoyuan, for the crown prince position. Gu Jingyi had no roots within the court. To swiftly establish his standing, I ended my quiet life and began navigating the circles of noble ladies and wives in the capital. This inevitably brought me into contact with Xie Riyun. Over the years, she had grown more composed, shedding her former rashness and impulsiveness. Yet, upon seeing me, the deep hatred in her eyes remained undeniable. In less than a year, Gu Jingyi had already risen to stand on equal footing with the fourth prince. One day, returning from a banquet outside the palace, I encountered the fourth prince, Gu Yaoyuan, emerging from Chiwu Palace. Among all the princes, mother disliked Gu Yaoyuan the most. They had long avoided each other like plague. I never imagined he would appear before Chiwu Palace. His health remained as frail as ever. Though it was summer, he still wore a cloak. Qin Yan. He called out to me, his usually composed eyes rippling as if he were carefully choosing his words. He paused for a long moment. You always say my legs are weak. Next time we meet, I might be able to carry a cauldron and run a lap around the imperial city. I pressed my lips together. Your Highness, you have a wonderful sense of humor. Gu Yaoyuan's ears flushed crimson. He hurriedly took his leave, coughing as he departed. His constitution was simply too frail. I rushed into Chiwu Palace to ask Mother what the fourth prince had come for. Mother was just as puzzled as I was. He's heading to the frontier to train under your grandfather's command. Has the boy lost his mind? I was stunned too. Does he want to die? Gu Yaoyuan was frail and sickly, but not to the point of imminent death. Why would he need such harsh training? Especially at the perilous frontier, where one careless step could cost him his life. Moreover, this was the critical moment in the struggle for the crown prince's position. After Gu Yaoyuan left the capital, Gu Jingyi ascended to the position of crown prince without a hitch. As for me, I was but a step away from becoming crown princess. Mother arranged for me to earn credit by saving the crown prince. During the autumn hunt, many young nobles and noblewomen from the capital were selected to accompany the emperor. The current Marquis of Ningyuan, Xie Riyun's eldest brother, had distinguished himself, so naturally, she was among those chosen. Gu Jingyi became the most sought-after figure in the capital, the ideal husband in the eyes of noble ladies. He extricated himself from the throng of young women, searching everywhere for my whereabouts. Gu Jingyi had long vowed to marry none but me. Moreover, now that he was under the empress's authority, the choice of future crown princess could not bypass her influence. Mother said she would give me the most splendid wedding imaginable. The empress would act as matchmaker, and the Son of Heaven would bestow the marriage. Moreover, it was high time my status as the second young lady of the Ningyuan Marquis' household was elevated. Upon entering the hunting grounds, Gu Jingyi should have been by the emperor's side, yet he was nowhere to be seen. I searched for him at length until Mother's attendants came urging me on. The emperor had grown impatient, about to enter the hunting grounds. For the plan ahead, I had to hurry over. Just as we were about to enter, I glimpsed Gu Jingyi and Xie Riyun emerging one after the other from a secluded tent. During the hunt, my mind wandered, and Mother reminded me several times. Today's hunt was destined to be anything but peaceful. The emperor, in high spirits, was lured deep into the woods by a plump stag, leaving only a few personal guards by his side. Then, he was ambushed by a troop of wild monkeys, leaving him in a sorry state. Judging the timing was right, I arrived just in time. From a distance, I shot the wild monkeys with precision, saving the emperor. For this act of saving the emperor, after the autumn hunt, I was granted the title of princess. Originally, asking the emperor to grant a marriage between me and Gu Jingyi seemed only natural. Yet, every time Mother brought it up before him, the emperor always avoided the subject. Left with no choice, my mother arranged the marriage between Gu Jingyi and me herself. My desires were simple: whether the marriage was granted by the emperor or the empress, I was destined to marry Gu Jingyi. Shortly after the autumn hunt, rebellion erupted in the south. His Majesty dispatched the Crown Prince and the Marquis of Ningyuan to suppress it, delaying our wedding. His departure lasted 2 years. 2 years later, the rebellion was quelled. When the Crown Prince and the Marquis of Ningyuan returned, I slipped out of the palace early to greet them at the city gate. The man I'd waited 2 years for had finally arrived. I had so much to tell him. The magnolia tree outside the riverside pavilion was blooming again, a new swing had been installed in Spring Blossom Palace, the newly arrived imperial chef's custard had a peculiar flavor, and my wedding gown was embroidered. When a maid announced the Crown Prince's arrival, I lifted the carriage curtain in delight, gazing toward the city gate. I saw the young man standing beside the carriage. Just as I was about to call out to him, he led a woman down from the carriage. I watched as he tenderly shielded her as she descended the steps, his gaze filled with such gentle affection. And that woman? None other than Xie Ruyun. Gu Jingyi, holding Xie Ruyun's hand, approached alongside the Marquis of Ningyuan to greet the welcoming officials. The officials wore mixed expressions, their discomfort intensifying as they witnessed Gu Jingyi and Xie Ruyun's intimate display. They knew I was in the carriage nearby. Gu Jingyi noticed the officials' unease and soon spotted me. The Empress summoned Gu Jingyi and Xie Ruyun, but I intercepted them outside the gates of Chiwu Palace. Qin Yan. Could we call off our marriage? Gu Jingyi spoke hesitantly. My gaze fell upon his hand, still tightly clasped with Xie Ruyun's, and it felt like a sharp stab. Why? What has happened these past 2 years? I demanded. Xie Ruyun smiled defiantly, deliberately nestling closer into Gu Jingyi's embrace. Haven't you realized yet? Xia Qingyan, you can never be crown princess. I am Jingyi's crown princess. Your current status is merely because the Empress favors our Ningyuan Marquisate. Had I not mistakenly worn the wrong attire that day and remained in the palace to attend the Empress, it would have been me crowned princess. The one standing beside the crown prince should be me too. But it's all right now. Everything has returned to where it truly belongs. Xie Ruyun lowered her head, gently caressing her belly, her eyes brimming with smug satisfaction. A taut string snapped in my mind. You're pregnant? Indeed. I'm carrying the crown prince's own flesh and blood. You didn't know? When His Highness and I were in the south. Shameless! I cut her off, raising my hand to slap her face, only to have it halted midair by Gu Jingyi. His aura turned icy cold instantly. He gripped my wrist so tightly it felt like he might crush my bones. Those eyes that stared at me, like dark pools, held a chill I'd never seen before. Enough, Xia Qingyan. Go beg the Empress Dowager to annul the engagement now. Unable to free myself from his grip, his words felt like a blade slicing through my heart. How dare you, Gu Jingyi? How dare you betray me? How dare you? A sharp slap echoed as Xie Ruyun struck my face. How dare you address His Royal Highness the Crown Prince by name? My ears rang for a long moment as I stared at the couple before me in disbelief. Gu Jingyi made no move to stop Xie Ruyun. In fact, the look he gave me now held an added layer of impatience. Out of childhood affection, I'm giving you one final chance. Don't be ungrateful. You've reaped the benefits of the Ningyuan Marquis's household long enough. You should have returned everything to Yunar ages ago. Holding my face, I suddenly laughed. Gu Jingyi, oh Gu Jingyi. Even you believe I owe everything I have to the Ningyuan Marquis's household? Since you wish to annul the betrothal, go tell the Empress Dowager yourself. Your humble son greets Her Majesty. Mother. Wicked creature. Before Gu Jingyi could finish, a teacup flew from behind the beaded curtain, striking his forehead squarely. Blood instantly spilled. No one in the entire Chiwu Palace had ever seen Mother so enraged. When I entered, I found Gu Jingyi kneeling in the hall, utterly flustered. Xie was cowering like a frightened quail, not daring to breathe. Gu Jingyi likely still believed that, as the Empress's adopted son, Mother valued him more than me. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. I approached, deliberately covering the half of my face Xie had struck moments before, my voice brimming with hurt and resentment. Mother, who knew me best, could not fail to notice my unusual state. She rose abruptly, stepping around the beaded curtain toward me. She removed my hand, revealing the vivid crimson mark. Who did this? Mother's voice was icy cold. The precious jewel she had cherished and pampered in the palm of her hand had become the target of another's abuse. Xie fell to her knees with a thud. Yes, it was Princess Qingyan who first offended His Highness the Crown Prince. This servant! Before her words could finish, Mother's palm struck her face, the sound even louder than before. Watching Xie terrified, speechless expression, I thought I should feel satisfied. But seeing the pain in Gu Jingyi's eyes only made my heart ache more. I wrote the marriage annulment, severing all ties with Gu Jingyi, then went to the Ningyuan Marquis' residence. The Ningyuan Marquis' residence was currently bustling with joyful preparations for Gu Jingyi and Xie wedding. Their eldest daughter was to marry Gu Jingyi and become crown princess. How could they not be overjoyed? As for my visit, they greeted me with the air of victors. The former Marquis of Ningyuan had raised me for years. I had once cherished that kindness, but now it seemed unnecessary. I severed all ties with the Marquis' residence. From then on, I devoted myself solely to being a princess, a fact known throughout the capital. Naturally, I've been selecting the garments and jewelry to wear for the crown prince and crown princess's wedding. Yet Gu Jingyi has little heart for preparing his own nuptials. The ministers who once swore undying loyalty to him deserted him overnight. Memorials accusing him piled up in the court like mountains, and his past misdeeds were dug up one by one. His position as crown prince now hangs by a thread. Gu Jingyi grew increasingly despondent and visibly exhausted. The imperial edict deposing him as crown prince arrived on the very day of his wedding. Gu Jingyi collapsed unconscious right in the wedding hall. Before losing consciousness, his final gaze turned toward me. I curved my eyes and returned him a pure smile, just as I had when he presented me with that white magnolia in the rain. Stripped of his crown prince title, he reverted to being that universally despised imperial prince. Having already offended many, his fall from grace now made him a target for everyone eager to kick him while he was down. Xie had believed marrying the crown prince would catapult her into the capital's most sought-after social circle. Little did she expect that now, wherever she went, she would be met with scornful glances. Within the palace walls, I'd heard plenty of gossip about this couple's discord, their daily quarrels and scandals. I'd also heard that Xie had never been pregnant with Gu Jingyi's child at all, that she'd merely feigned pregnancy to force him to abandon me. At first, I felt a tinge of schadenfreude, but over time, it just became a joke to me. When the moonlight pavilion outside the palace released a new melody, I naturally went to hear it. Unexpectedly, I spotted Xie inside. Her former splendor was long gone. The only jewelry adorning her was an item I had worn over a decade ago. When I entered, she was being harassed by a minor county princess, looking utterly embarrassed. The noble ladies noticed my arrival and grew quieter. I'm here for the music. Carry on. I waved dismissively and strolled leisurely up to the second floor. Soon after, I heard Xie being forced to polish their shoes. While listening to the music, an unusually lively commotion reached me from the main street. I couldn't help but look. A massive bronze cauldron was being transported from the direction of the city gate, heavily guarded by soldiers, seemingly headed toward the imperial palace. Yet it wasn't the season for tributes from foreign lands. Judging by the escort soldiers' attire, they didn't resemble garrison troops from the counties either. They looked more like soldiers stationed at the frontier. Just as my confusion deepened, someone behind me shoved me. My body lost its balance, and I tumbled toward the ground below. Staring at the bronze cauldron hurtling toward me, my mind went blank in sheer terror. Suddenly, a figure in dark robes swept past, and I landed in a strong embrace. The man's features felt vaguely familiar. Stunned, I finally recognized him. Your Highness, the fourth prince. His transformation was astonishing. The sickly appearance of old had vanished entirely, replaced by the spirited vigor of a young general. Gu Yaoyuan's ears flushed crimson again. I hurriedly looked up at the second floor of the Bright Moon Pavilion. The person who had just pushed me was standing there. I saw Xie Riyun's panicked figure leaving. Xie Riyun, accused of attempting to murder the current princess, was thrown into the death cell that very day. Gu Jingyi entered the palace that night. When I woke up, the palace maid told me Gu Jingyi had waited outside all night. Yawning lazily, I instructed the attendant to escort him to the outer hall. When I saw him again, the youthful vigor had vanished from his face, as if he'd aged a decade overnight. Qin Yan. Have you come to plead for Xie Riyun? Meeting his pleading gaze, I replied indifferently. No, not at all. Gu Jingyi shook his head repeatedly. Qin Yan, I've realized I shouldn't have left you. You're still the one I love. I was merely blinded by Xie Riyun for a time. She deceived me, claiming she bore my child. Qin Yan, I had no choice. I gave a cold laugh, slowly exposing his hypocritical facade. Just because of the child? Did the title and status of the Marquis of Ningyuan hold no allure for you? The Ningyuan Marquisate had long since declined since its hereditary succession began. Were it not for my mother's patronage, they'd have vanished from the imperial court long ago. I still remember Gu Jingyi's expression when he was crown prince, his eyes brimming with ambition. But fate never granted him that destiny. As if struck by my words, his emotions flared. They deceived me. They all deceived me. Qin Yan, you've always been the one in my heart. Gu Jingyi, Gu Jingyi. Had you come today to plead for Xie Riyun, I might have held you in higher regard. But seeing you like this. I waved him off with utter disdain, instructing the servants, show him out. How could I ever have fancied him? Gu Jingyi still refused to leave, so I had the palace attendants escort him out. All this commotion was truly irritating. Just then, the fourth prince, who had recently returned to the capital, arrived. Gu Yaoyuan invited me to see the cauldron. Though I couldn't fathom what was so fascinating about it, it was certainly more pleasant than watching that scoundrel Gu Jingyi. I still remembered Gu Yaoyuan telling me he wanted to carry the cauldron and run a lap around the imperial city. But the one he brought into the palace was simply too massive. Perhaps we should reconsider, I couldn't help but advise. After all, in my memory, the fourth prince still appeared frail and sickly. But Gu Yaoyuan's expression was utterly serious. A gentleman's word is as good as 4 horses pulling a chariot. I was about to plead further. In the past, because mother disliked him, I hadn't held much affection for the fourth prince either. But if he hadn't intervened yesterday, I likely would have fallen to my death on this cauldron. Now, I found myself genuinely worried for him. Gu Yaoyuan had already stepped forward. Seeing him lift the bronze cauldron with both hands, I was startled into a moment of uncharacteristic discomfiture. What kind of elixir had he been taking all these years at the border? Spotting a stone on the path, I hurriedly warned him. Your Highness, be careful. But it was too late. Gu Yaoyuan stumbled and fell, the bronze cauldron flung aside. I rushed forward to help him up, suddenly feeling a sense of familiarity with the scene. Gu Yaoyuan sat up, his face flushed crimson. He clearly wasn't as frail as before, yet he'd still stumbled. Seeing his disheveled state, I couldn't help but chuckle. It was the first time I'd laughed so freely since the engagement was broken. Gu Yaoyuan had seemed somewhat embarrassed, but seeing my joyful laughter, he couldn't help but smile too. His eyes even held a hint of tenderness. A letter arrived from my grandfather at the frontier. Besides recounting Gu Yaoyuan's life with the army over the years, it repeatedly urged mother to let go. So mother disliked Gu Yaoyuan because of his mother. During her lifetime, consort Jing enjoyed the emperor's exclusive favor and constantly opposed mother in the harem. It was precisely because of her that mother's early days in the palace were so difficult. Mother had harbored resentment toward her for a long time. However, consort Jing had always been frail and ill, passing away after only a few years. The son she bore was as sickly as she had been. So, every time mother saw Gu Yaoyuan's sickly appearance, it reminded her of consort Jing. Grandfather said mother should learn to let go, that the grudges of the previous generation should not be forced upon the next. This knot in her heart seemed impossible to untie. Yet ever since Gu Yaoyuan saved me on the main street that day, mother's attitude toward him softened considerably. I still felt grandfather's letter required careful consideration. Between the lines, he seemed quite pleased with the fourth prince. The emperor's health was deteriorating rapidly, and the entire court was urging the selection of a new crown prince. Mother has been troubled by this lately, but I find myself utterly uninterested in any of the princes. They all bullied me when we were children. Except for Gu Yaoyuan. He was wise and kind from a young age, the prince most praised by our tutors. Now, after training in the military, he's grown strong and healthy, truly the ideal choice for crown prince. But he seems a bit dull. Could he possibly like me? I arranged to meet Gu Yaoyuan at the riverside pavilion. He was summoned by the emperor at the last minute. I waited in the pavilion until nightfall, painting one magnolia after another. Lost in my painting, time flew by. Suddenly, the light beside me grew brighter. Glancing sideways, I saw Gu Yaoyuan dressed in black, head slightly bowed as he adjusted my lamp. I'm afraid I've disturbed you. Not at all. I've long heard of your highness's exceptional skill in painting. Might I request a painting from you? Gu Yaoyuan nodded. We switched places, and he too began painting the magnolias nearby with earnest focus. As night deepened, I drew closer, holding the palace lantern. Soft light danced across Gu Yaoyuan's profile, casting gentle shadows as he painted with lowered gaze. A realization dawned on me. Suddenly, the man before me seemed like that magnolia tree, pure and crystalline. Your Highness, I asked softly. Is there a lady who holds your heart? Instantly, the brush in Gu Yaoyuan's hand trembled, his ears flushing crimson. There is. I paused, then smiled wryly. The hour is late. This humble maiden takes her leave. It seemed my destiny was to live out my days alone. The emperor suddenly summoned me. I recalled he never held much affection for me. Though my heart fluttered with apprehension, I went. By his sickbed, the emperor retrieved a box from beside his pillow and ordered me to open it. Sealed within was an imperial edict, a decree of betrothal. The names inscribed upon it were mine and Gu Yaoyuan's. Your Majesty, this edict was written 3 years ago. His words left me stunned. No wonder the emperor had refused to grant me a betrothal to Gu Jingyi back then, this edict had already been issued. After Yuan requested this edict from me, he went to the frontier. That foolish child. He knew the frontier was perilous, his body so frail. He knew the empress disliked him, and how could the protector general treat him kindly? Yet he still chose to go. He said that once his illness was cured, once he no longer collapsed at the slightest breeze, he would return to pursue you properly. If you consented, he would present this imperial decree. Seeing Yuan return safely brings me great joy. My time is short. This imperial decree must be entrusted to someone. After much consideration, I fear no one is more suited than you. That day, the emperor spoke to me at length, all about Gu Yaoyuan. As I was about to leave, he suddenly spoke again. I don't care for you much. You bear too much resemblance to the empress. So, the emperor had known all along. When I carried the imperial edict back to Chiwu Palace, I collided head-on with Gu Yaoyuan rushing over. He was panting from running, with no palace attendant in sight. Qingyan, after I returned, I thought long and hard about what you said that day. His gaze was utterly earnest. There is a woman I've long admired. That woman is none other than... Is. He faltered for a long moment, then steeled his resolve. It is you. The marriage between Gu Yaoyuan and me was arranged by the Empress Dowager and bestowed by the Emperor, bringing joy to the entire nation. After our wedding, he treated me exceptionally well and successfully ascended to the position of Crown Prince. I adored magnolias, so he planted them throughout the Eastern Palace. Though he ultimately couldn't carry the cauldron around the palace grounds, I granted him a special privilege. He carried me on his back to explore every corner of the imperial city. The Emperor and Empress indulged our whims. 3 years later, the Emperor passed away, and the Crown Prince ascended the throne. I was crowned Empress and bore Gu Yaoyuan 3 sons and 1 daughter. I remained by his side, sharing his burdens. Yet I also lived the life of an ordinary woman, caring for my husband and children, visiting my mother in my spare time. Now, at last, I can properly call her mother. Under Gu Yaoyuan's governance, the people lived in peace and contentment, and the nation flourished. The Emperor and Empress remained deeply devoted to each other, united as one for a lifetime. Even centuries later, their story continues to be celebrated as a timeless tale of love and devotion. The end.